Marburn Academy was born out of necessity. It was a labor of love. A number of parents came over to our home one night. We decided that we were going to try to create a quality education environment for our children, and you're very naive when you start things like this. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'll start a school today. We wanted to celebrate these young people because they had a lot of talents and a lot of abilities, and they were definitely being denied the opportunity without, a very strong educational option in the city. The beginnings of the school were really touch and go. We opened the doors with 12 students. We closed that first year with 16. When people have asked me over the years, can I help them to start a school? I say, how many angels do you have? Because the reality is you can have all of the greatest ideas in the world, but if you don't have the funds to implement them, it just doesn't work.
Typically, when you start a capital campaign, people will tell you you need a feasibility study. And that study essentially tells you the amount of money that you're going to need to raise up front to effectively make it a successful campaign. Rick just said, it's the classic line from in Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. And he really pushed the board aggressively, and rightfully so, that forget about all the traditional feasibility studies, forget about all the traditional numbers. We can make this happen, and we will make it happen. Rick just never backed away from the commitment. He was always committed to pushing it forward. He was always vocal. He was always helping to reach out to a wide variety of individuals in the community. Have to credit Rick and Karen for that energy, that commitment, and that willingness to take a different perspective than I think the majority of the board was taking at that time.
I think that they came to Marburn looking for a place for Jack. But I feel that they stayed at Marburn to make this a place for every kid, every family, to have what they could see that Jack was getting. They were not going to give up. And I don't even think that they realized that it was such a fight. It was just who they are. They just have that energy and compassion for things, and then they just get involved and make it happen.
Over the years, the Milenthal family, we had spent time with them, and just getting to know them, the enthusiasm, the tenacity, the grit to take a project like this on was inspiring to me personally. Their dedication to Marburn is second to none.
It was exciting. You could see the passion from the leadership with Earl and Scott and Beth and the board with Rick and Craig, and it was fun to be part of that design process and see how desperately they needed this facility. You could tell that the program was amazing. It had 30 years of success, and it needed a place to grow.
If it wasn't for that enthusiasm and the mission, we probably would have walked away after the first or second meeting. But it was that special.
Jack came, and I think he was he was on the cusp of a whole new generation of Marburn kids who don't come as a stopgap measure, but come because this is the right school for them.
Karen was the one who's really involved in the school, and but she suggested, why don't you join the board? And Greg invited me to the board. I was at the first. I'm going to go long here, and you could edit. And I went to the first board meeting, and I was just listening, and they had a report, and the report said, we're going to turn away 60 kids this year. And I was okay, and I was listening for a while, and then I sort of rose my head. I said later, we're going to turn away 60 kids. Well, why is that? Well, we don't. Are they not qualified? Do we not have can't we serve them and all? They said, No, we don't have a big enough school. We've never had a big enough school. We always turn away, dozens of kids. And by the end of the meeting, I said, well, why don't we build a bigger school? I know how to solve this.
Rick came home and said, we don't have any other options. If we don't do it, who else is going to do it? And we don't need someone to tell us if it's feasible or it's not feasible, because we're just going to do it, which I think is the spirit of Marburn at its very core.
Yes. If these teachers were thinking about what was feasible for every one of these students, what would they achieve? And there were a lot of dark moments, actually. A lot of times when this wasn't supposed to happen. And everyone around us stepped up. When we went out in the community, they could see that. And they could see what we were going to achieve here. And really the obstacles and hurdles were just a matter of time to overcome. But the Marburn School was for the Marburn kid. The Marburn kid doesn't give up. And that spirit's still going now into the future.
And let's face it, Rick really at heart is a Marburn kid.
I am a Marburn kid.
Yeah. I think a student at Marburn is kind of just a little example of what the whole building represents. So, we went from having smaller obstacles on Walden, where we had we outgrew the building, and the high school had to be in, little modules outside the building. And every time the community got bigger and bigger and bigger, and as a result, the vision got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's why we're now here in this beautiful building, because so many people bought into that vision.
So it's not just a building. We did build a building that I think has laid a foundation for Marburn. That campaign, bringing together this community, bringing together all of the educators, bringing together all of the families and parents, bringing together this city to think about Marburn and what it can be. That's the real foundation that's been laid, and that's why this school is going to have a great future for many generations.